This will be the network premiere, so a lot of people will have not seen this movie.
Is the sound going? Yeah, just... I'll put it
Oh.
over the picture.
Stand by.
What?
We're rolling.
Second sticks, common marker. Mark.
It's very weird, you know. I have also seen people who are just full of fun, full of life, without naming any names at all. In life, who you go, God, if somebody could just capture that on film. And yet when that X-ray looks through them, somehow the truth comes out. And they just don't transfer or translate. It's like Stanislavski said, we can all learn the techniques of acting. But there's that extra something that you just can't take your eyes off that person. Or that something that somebody looks at and identifies with and says, I want to be just like them. I want to have a life like theirs. I want to be, you know, I want to look like Michelle Pfeiffer. Sometimes I think I do. I want to be happy like Goldie. You know, Jack Nicholson, I want to have the joie de vivre that he has on screen, the freedom. There is something that movie stars can unlock in terms of humanity and people that frees them in one way or another, even if it's for a couple of hours. But what is that little extra thing, you know? When I was first hired to do Laugh-In, I didn't really know what I had to offer. I was trained as a dancer and a singer and had done some acting roles, but I never knew that I was really funny. You know, I never had a sense of, oh, well, that's what I am. I'm a comedian, you know. And then they put me in this role, and suddenly I sort of screwed up, and it was funny. And I said, could you roll that over again? And then that was funny, and then and they wouldn't roll it over again. It turned into this character, who, by the way, was me. So that was me, honestly, laughing at myself, going, George, could you please, and being out of control. So when the critics would come up and kind of glom onto this person who seemed to be such a free spirit, I can't say that they created me. I can say that they recognized that and put it down and wrote about her. So, no, I think probably I gave it to them.
Siempre viva! Live forever!
It's very hard for me to just get behind a comedy that's just total and complete about nothing. I could be blamed for doing pictures like that, but I could always tell you what the movie was really about. Death Becomes Her fascinated me because it dealt with obsessions. It dealt with fear of aging. It dealt with women's relationships to each other. It dealt with male-female relationships. In a sense, when you came out of this picture, what one should have felt, certainly what I felt in reading the script, is I felt that life is to be celebrated. This picture, of course, denied and defied that rule, which is exactly what a black comedy is about. It makes you start to think about your life. For most people, I was playing against type, the sex, the femme fatale, the, you know, the seductress. It really isn't, because that part of me is alive and well. But in terms of perceptions, yeah, I mean, that's not what I do. That's not what people hire me to do, supposedly. But what fun for an actor. What a great thing to be able to have a platform, a canvas, a director who says, I want you to do this. I believe in you enough, into your range and talent, that you can, you know, explore yourself in this movie. So Bob Z looked at us and said, I want you to play that role, Goldie. I want Meryl to play that role.
Mad hell!
I did say, but Bob, I sing and dance. Nobody ever used me to sing and dance. This is the perfect time. He said, I have my reasons. I want you to play something you've never played before. Pretty girl. Yeah, I got to be fat. They called it flabbercast. I think that they made that name up because it was really flabby. I got very claustrophobic when they started putting on the makeup, because it was all over my face and my neck, and I just felt what's going to happen if I want to just rip this off my face right now. I can't, because it's glued to my skin. You know, I'd have to lay down and get into the bodysuit, and it was about 40 pounds. And they stuck an air hose in me, because what's interesting is that you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. How are you, Goldie? I'm doing good. You want to sit down? You want, no, I can go. And suddenly, boom, get me out. Get me out of this suit. I'm going to die. That's how quick your body temperature goes up. And it won't go down. So, you know, it is one of those things that they had to keep that air compressor, you know, hose on my back. I'd stand there like this. Let's talk about, from a directorial point of view, what is the movie about, and how does this character serve the plot? I felt that Helen wasn't serving the plot the way she could have. So Bob and I together sat down and we talked about how we can make her so destitute, so crazed, so maniacal. How could we do this? So when she finally falls, she falls so hard that she comes back with a vengeance. And we and the writers came up with this idea.
Anything you'd like to talk about?
Madeline
Is this where we are, Helen? For you to have a life, you have to erase her from your mind. You have to completely eliminate any...
What?
You have to completely eliminate...
You're right.
What?
You're absolutely right. And that's the moment when she decides that she's going to kill Madeline. When you are playing something that isn't there, basically they are doing it all later. The special effects studios, they do that. I had to pretend to do certain things. I had to imagine things are there that aren't there. But we do that when we're in front of actors who are giving nothing back anyway. I mean, when an actor isn't there for you, man, you can't give up, you know. You've got to pretend that whatever you're getting is just perfect. What they did was, when I had this hole in my stomach, I wore this sort of outfit, very tight outfit, and then they put a black hole right here made out of rubber. And so what I had to do is I had to play the hole that was just there.
Look at me, Ernest. Just look at me. I'm soaking wet.
And there seems to be something wrong with your, blouse.
So that's what I did.
I've got a hole in my stomach.
You know, and so that was basically what I did. I did not do my own stunt when I flew into the pool because it was far too dangerous. They attached the girl to a rope and, you know, gave her a harness, and really, I mean, it was very dangerous. I hit a dummy. You know, it was the shoulders and part of a head, and I could just bash the hell out of that thing. And it was very weird.
Pain! I'll tell you about pain!
I've never done that in a film before. When I'm working, I really don't think about the camera much at all. However, how can I say this? When it's set up, like these cameras here are set up, I know what they're doing. I'm quite aware of it, you know. However, it doesn't get in my way at all in terms of what I'm saying to you or how I'm relating or what ideas I want to get across. But I watch that camera move a little bit, you know, and the other part of my brain says, now, what side is he getting and how is that looking? And, you know, so it all works. I mean, you know, at least for me, I don't just sort of pretend they're not there. No, I accept that they're there. That's what we do. We're making movies. We have a relationship with these instruments. And that's a big part of it, you know. We have to accommodate each other. Death Becomes Her had an ending that we went to Witznau for. Witznau is in Switzerland. I think it was a much more interesting ending. But because it didn't test as well, there was another ending that was put on, rewritten, and we actually reshot it, which nowadays everybody reshoots their ending, so it's no big secret.
Help me! My legs aren't working! Help me!
The original ending was much more poignant because we were not all blotched up and the paint was all screwed up and everything. We were absolutely the same. We were just the same 37 years later. And we were sitting in front of this beautiful backdrop of mountains and lakes, and we were bored. Bored. It's more of really the message of the movie. And Meryl said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. What do you want to do? And she said, well, I don't know. You want to go to London? Well, I don't go to London. I've been to London. Well, what about Paris? She says, again? I mean, they were just, and they hated each other. Because all they had was each other. All their friends have died. They were, I mean, now they look down and they see this old man, and it's Bruce Willis. And he's touching the hand of this woman, and he's so in love, and he's very close to death. But he has such great quality of his life. And we looked down and we looked, and Meryl said, isn't that pitiful? She said, look how old they are. And I looked at them. And that's when my character was able to really look at them with longing. And she'd say, aren't you glad we're not them? And then I got to lie and say yes and mean no. And that was the end of the movie. And that is really what the movie says. And unfortunately, it wasn't an up-funny ending. It didn't have the punch the rest of the movie had. It wasn't special effects and wild and crazy. And people just sort of deflated. So it's all about money, isn't it? I read CrissCross as a writing sample. And I called my partner and I said, why hasn't this movie been made? It's a lovely little film. It's about parenting. It's about abandonment. Never being deluded into the idea that this was going to be a hit movie or that it was going to be a movie that was going to make oodles of money and, you know, break all records. It was a wonderful movie that should have been made, that people should have been able to see. When I walk out of my house, there's a perception. And it's difficult because I'm not always, you know, that person. I'm not always sunny. I'm not always happy. And then there came the time when I wanted to make a serious picture, and it wasn't as favorable because it wasn't a moneymaker. It wasn't a movie that was going to be acceptable to my quote-unquote audience. And so suddenly, I find that as I am growing older and as I am maturing in the industry, it gets more and more difficult to stretch. Producing is very hard. It's a job all in itself. It's very difficult to be an actor-producer without becoming disheartened. It's also very much against the grain of the actor in terms of the instrument, because the actor wants to be playful, wants to experiment, wants to feel freewheeling, wants to be spontaneous. The producer is someone who actually nuts and bolts, puts things together, gets things made, has the tenacity, the point of view, makes the phone calls, has the lunch, talks to the writers, sits with writers' meetings, diagramming the script, you know, how does it grow, how do the characters meet. I mean, it's just on and on and on. And it is something I don't enjoy, I must tell you.
I know what you do.
You know what I do?
I know you take your clothes off in front of other guys. If I make as much money as you, will you quit your job?
Doing a striptease in front of men, I was nervous about certain parts of it. But for the most part, I felt pretty comfortable. I was also very covered, you know, I made sure of that. I didn't show very much. When I danced and when I was a dancer in my life, in the earlier part of my life, doing CrissCross was not what I did. I was not a stripper. I didn't show my ass or my tits or anything. I was very proud of the fact that even though I worked in Vegas, I was not a showgirl. I was a dancer, and that meant that I was fully clothed and I had some semblance of talent. Doing this dance, this gyration, was not difficult because I am comfortable with my body. So the idea that I might have been looked at by other men it was odd. You know, Oliver, my son, said to me, "Mom, it's so neat because you live out your fantasies sometimes in movies." And I said, "It's very astute because there are some times when you do." And he said, "And then you get to kiss other guys, so, you know, you have no reason to cheat on Daddy, you know." I wish I could be more eloquent.
All right, here we go. And let's roll. Ready, please? B, Mark. Action.